inventions that has transformed the world, and probably each one of us, is the phone. Now, some of you can't imagine life without a phone. But believe it or not, there was a time when people didn't have cell phones. They had just what's called landlines. And I'm old enough to remember when they had party lines. This would be when a whole neighborhood would be connected up with just one phone line. So that whenever you pick up the phone, you could hear somebody else. You often had to dial something to get an operator to place a call. But these party lines, they were not good for privacy, but they were so good for gossip, because you could hear everybody. Well, in a sense, phones transformed us. And it still does. For example, like the story of the man who had a phone, his cell phone, and he wasn't working. So he takes it in and has it looked at. And the repair person takes it back and looks at it a while and comes back and says, well, here's your problem. You dropped your phone in the toilet when you were going to the bathroom. How dare you say that, the man said. How can you prove that? Well, your phone took a picture. We recognize that we are invited to be transformed, to become different. There's a story, a true story, of a woman named Auburn Sandstorm. Back in 1992, she was 29 years old. She was in an abusive marriage. She had a 3-year-old, and she was struggling to get off drugs. Well, as she tells the story on one fateful night, as she's curled up in her living room on the dirty carpet, she's not sure what to do, but she had this crumpled piece of paper in her hand that she kept looking at, then she'd put it away and look at it again. On that piece of paper was the number of a Christian counselor that her mom had given her some time ago when they were still speaking. Well, finally, Auburn had the nerve to get her phone and dial the number. A man answers. And she nervously says, I need help. Do you have time to talk? And he said, sure. He goes and apparently shuts off some music, a radio. And he says, what's up? And Auburn says it's the first time in her life where she told her story. She told about all the difficulties she had in her marriage. She told about her struggle growing up and different family issues. She told about her addiction to drugs and how she's trying to get off it. And indeed, she said it's the first time where she really just was open and honest. And she said something wonderful happened. Because he didn't judge. He didn't condemn me. He didn't point out my faults. He just listened. And this went on through the night. And indeed, she kept talking, and he'd respond once in a while. Finally, as they're talking the whole night and in the early morning when the sun's coming up, and she says she's just feeling this lightness and goodness. She says, well, you know, it's okay if you want to give me some Bible verses now. I think I'm ready. Like, I think this has been very helpful. And the man says, well, Auburn, promise you're not going to hang up on me. She goes, no, I won't hang up. He says, when you made that call, you called a wrong number. I'm not a counselor. They continued to talk. They continued to, again, be connected. She never got his name. She never talked to him again. But she said that night changed her life. She again went into a treatment program. She did get a divorce. She ended up raising her son alone, and he turned out pretty good. Was a star athlete, went to Princeton University eventually. And as Auburn talks about that night, what she says is the next day, I felt this kind of joy, like I was shining. I think I've heard them call it the peace that passes understanding. I had gotten to see that there was completely random love in the universe, that it could be unconditional, and that some of it was for me in that deepest, darkest night of despair. If you can just get one pinhole of light, all grace rushes in. Well, I have to believe that grace rushed in upon the disciples, as we heard in the first reading, and as we heard in the gospel, where they were fearful and not sure what's going on. It's two different accounts of the Spirit coming to them. And sure enough, in that first reading, the disciples were overwhelmed with the Spirit, and they ended up just talking in different languages and so filled with that idea that we are all connected, one with each other, no matter what language we're from, where we come from. That they were transformed. They were different. The world was different after that. As a staff, we have been calling parishioners just to check up on you and see how you're doing. Some of you got those calls. Pastoral Council have also been making calls, and our befrienders have too. Well, a couple of weeks ago, one of our staff members, Jennifer, she called a parishioner, his name's Judy, just to check in on her, how things are going, and Judy said, I'm fine. I'm self-quarantining. I'm just not going out. And as they chatted, Judy said, well, what I do every day is that I will just make random calls to various hospitals or clinics or gas stations or grocery stores. And I call just to tell them, thank you. And as Judy explained to Jennifer, she said, you know, I have this relationship with God. God is my best friend. And every day what I try to do is I say, God, show me something that I can do today to make you smile. Well, Jennifer then went on to explain different things going on in our communities. And one thing she said is, you know, there are free meals, chicken dinners offered through the pizza barn. And Judy said, I did not know that. I'm okay. I don't need any chicken, but I know who I'm going to call today. Indeed, for all of us, we recognize that Spirit is trying to burst into our lives. And many times all we can do is complain about how things are, and I can't do this, and this is not the same. What happened on this Pentecost feast is that the church, indeed the world, was changed forever. Maybe with this COVID-19, we are now going to be changed forever. That we're not going to go back to the way we were, the way we took other people for granted, the way we thought about things are always there. As one person gave me some ideas, she wrote down that said, I don't want things to go back to normal. Here's some of my thoughts. I pray that the next time a friend grabs me and pulls me in for a hug, I actually take the time to appreciate the gift of their embrace. I pray that when school resumes and I am dropping off kids, I take the time to thank the staff for the amazing gift that they have given to families. I pray the next time that I'm in a crowded restaurant, I take the time to look around at those smiling faces, loud voices, and thank God for the gift of community. I pray that the next time I'm actually standing in the church and I'm listening to the voices of praise and actually receiving communion, that I take a moment to thank God for the gift of celebrating together. I pray that the next time I see a person or a situation that needs prayer, I hope that I pray as passionately and as fervently as I have these past months. I pray that when I'm at a grocery store, that I take a moment to thank God for providing me with the necessities of life and the amazing people who work so hard to keep all of us supplied. I pray that I never again take for granted the ability to hop in the car, visit a friend, go shopping, go to a movie. The truth is, all our lives have been affected with this virus. And some of you are still suffering, either because of financial difficulties or health. We continue to pray with you and support you. But our hope is that for all of us, we become different, just like the disciples were. That we let that Spirit break into our lives. And maybe it's just a little pinhole opening, just a glimmer of possibilities that the Spirit's going to come rushing into you. And maybe it is when you take the time to listen to somebody, even in the middle of the night. Maybe it's when you make that call and say thank you to those people, those organizations, that person. And perhaps in this Pentecost time, you will take the challenge of becoming different, doing something extra, again, responding to the world with a new vision, a new inspiration, and doing something every day that will make God